Welcome to a journey to the very edge of what we call reality. Today, we're not just exploring an idea. We're meditating on a profound possibility that the solid world around us is far more fluid than we imagine, and that your consciousness, the very essence of you, might be the silent captain of a vessel that sails between different versions of your life, often without you ever realizing the voyage has taken place. This isn't about abandoning science, but about venturing into that exhilarating space where established science meets speculative thought, where we can ponder what might be possible in a universe that is, by all accounts, far stranger than we can possibly know. Imagine your life as a great river, flowing from birth towards some unknown ocean. We tend to think of this as a single, continuous stream. But what if it's more like a braided river? A vast network of channels that weave and diverge and sometimes, just for a moment, merge back together. This is the core of the concept of a fluid reality. It's the suggestion that your timeline isn't a fixed, concrete highway, but a dynamic, flowing current. Think about those moments of intense déjà vu, that overwhelming feeling that you've lived this exact moment before. Or consider the opposite, jamais vu, where a familiar place or person suddenly feels completely alien and unrecognizable. We usually dismiss these as neurological quirks, simple misfirings in the brain's complex machinery. But in the framework of a fluid reality, these could be interpreted as something more profound. Perhaps that feeling of familiarity is a bleed-through from a parallel timeline where you did have that experience. Maybe that sudden feeling of strangeness is your consciousness briefly registering the subtle differences between the reality you just left and the one you've just entered. These reality shifts, as they're sometimes called, are often subtle, like a cosmic typo in the script of your life. 1. You might notice a picture on your wall is slightly crooked when you were certain it was straight, or a friend's eye color seems different for a fleeting second. These are the kinds of experiences people report, often with a disquieting sense of certainty that something has changed, even if they can't prove it. The idea here isn't that the world is unstable, but that our experience of it is. Consciousness, in this view, isn't just a passenger along for the ride. It is the navigator, and sometimes it quietly and seamlessly steers us from one channel of the river to another. To even begin to entertain this idea, we have to journey from the vastness of the river of life down to the impossibly small, to the world of quantum mechanics, where the rules of our everyday reality completely break down. At its core, quantum physics tells us that the fundamental particles that make up everything, the atoms in your body, the air you're breathing, don't exist in one definite place until they are observed. Instead, they exist in a cloud of possibilities, a state known as superposition. The most famous illustration of this is the double-slit experiment. When you fire a single particle, like an electron, at a screen with two slits in it, it behaves as if it goes through both slits at the same time, creating an interference pattern on the other side, much like a wave in water would. But the moment you place a detector to see which slit it goes through, the electron chooses one path and behaves like a solid particle. The very act of observing it collapses the wave of possibilities into a single, concrete reality. This is where things get truly mind-bending. In the 1950s, a physicist named Hugh Everett III proposed a radical solution to this measurement problem. He asked, what if the wave of possibilities never collapses? Imagine you're at a crossroads and can turn left or right. In the many worlds view, the universe branches. In one universe, you turn left. In another, identical in every way up to that moment, you turn right. There's a universe where you took that job, one where you didn't, one where you were born a minute earlier, and one where the dinosaurs never went extinct. According to this theory, you aren't just one person. You are an infinite collection of people, living out every conceivable version of your life. If there are countless other timelines branching off from our own every second, is it possible that we might sometimes pick up echoes from them? This brings us to one of the most intriguing and widely discussed cultural phenomena of our time, the Mandela Effect. The term was coined by Fiona Broome, a paranormal researcher who discovered that she, along with thousands of other people, shared a distinct and detailed memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. They remembered seeing news clips of his funeral, reading about it, and mourning his death. The problem, of course, is that Nelson Mandela was released from prison, became president of South Africa, and died in 2013. This isn't an isolated case. Countless other examples exist. Many people swear that the famous line from Star Wars is Luke, "I am your father." But if you watch the scene, Darth Vader actually says, "No, I am your father." Millions remember a series of children's books called The Berenstain Bears. Yet the actual spelling has always been Berenstain. 6. The Monopoly Man, Rich Uncle Pennybags, is often remembered with a monocle, but he has never had one. The standard psychological explanation for the Mandela Effect is compelling and straightforward. It is a demonstration of the fallibility of human memory. Our brains aren't perfect recording devices. They confabulate, fill in gaps, and are susceptible to suggestion, leading to collective misremembering. However, the speculative and far more exciting possibility connects directly to our exploration of fluid reality. What if they are residual traces, memory breadcrumbs, left over from a timeline your consciousness has shifted away from? 9. Perhaps for a vast number of people, their consciousness originated in a timeline where it was Berenstain and where Mandela did die in prison. These are the small signs that might suggest a quiet slip between timelines. Coined by psychologist Carl Jung, synchronicity refers to meaningful coincidences that seem too perfectly arranged to be random chance. You might have a specific, obscure question pop into your head, and you overhear a stranger on the bus discussing that exact topic. While these can be seen as the brain's pattern recognition system working over time, another interpretation is that they represent moments where timelines are aligning or merging. Then there are the small, unexplainable environmental anomalies. At the very center of this grand mystery lies the greatest mystery of all, consciousness itself. Science can explain what consciousness does. It allows us to be aware, to feel, to think. But it cannot explain what consciousness is, or how a collection of cells in our brain gives rise to the rich, subjective experience of being you. This is what philosopher David Chalmers famously called the hard problem of consciousness. However, some bold and controversial theories propose that the answer may lie in the quantum world. Hypotheses like the orchestrated objective reduction, OR theory, developed by physicists Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, suggest that consciousness isn't just a product of classical neuron firing. Instead, they propose it arises from quantum computations occurring within tiny protein structures inside our neurons called microtubules. Let's break that down. If consciousness is fundamentally a quantum phenomenon, it wouldn't have to play by the classical rules of being in one place at one time. Just like an electron can exist in a superposition of multiple states at once, a quantum consciousness might not be rigidly bound to a single timeline. It could, theoretically, exist in a state of superposition across multiple parallel realities simultaneously. What we experience as our single linear reality could simply be the timeline that our consciousness is most focused on, or collapsed into at any given moment. This doesn't mean you would be aware of your other selves, just as the electron is unaware of the paths it didn't take once it has been observed. But it opens up a breathtaking possibility. That your awareness is a quantum wave spread out across the multiverse, and what you perceive as your life is just one peak of that wave. It would mean that consciousness is not something that is in the universe. It is something that is fundamentally woven into the quantum fabric of the universe. When we look up at the night sky, we see a universe that seems vast but singular. Yet modern cosmology provides several theoretical frameworks that not only allow for, but in some cases, predict the existence of parallel realities. These aren't just philosophical musings. They arise from the mathematics of our most advanced theories about the cosmos. 16. One of the most compelling ideas comes from the theory of cosmic inflation. The prevailing model of the universe's origin suggests that in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, space-time expanded exponentially, faster than the speed of light. The theory of eternal inflation takes this a step further, proposing that this inflation never completely stopped. It might have stopped in our pocket of space, allowing our universe to form, but it continues raging on in the vast expanse beyond. Imagine a gigantic block of Swiss cheese. The cheese itself is the eternally inflating space-time. Our universe is just one of the holes, a bubble universe where inflation has ended and stars and galaxies could form. But in the inflating space around us, new bubbles are constantly forming, each one a self-contained cosmos, potentially with its own unique physical laws and constants. In one universe, gravity might be stronger. In another, there may be different fundamental particles. We are just one bubble in a cosmic ocean of foam, with an infinite number of other universes bubbling into existence. String theory adds another fascinating layer to this cosmic tapestry. It posits that the fundamental constituents of reality aren't point-like particles, but tiny, vibrating one-dimensional strings. For the theory's mathematics to work, it requires the existence of extra spatial dimensions beyond the three we perceive. In this framework, our entire universe could be a three-dimensional membrane, or brain, floating in a higher dimensional space, like a single sheet of paper in a vast room. 19. And in that room, there could be other brains, other universes, floating parallel to our own. Sometimes, these brains might drift close enough to influence each other, perhaps even collide, which some theorists have speculated could be the cause of events like the Big Bang itself. These cosmological models paint a picture of a reality that is far grander and more populated than we could ever imagine. Of all the multiverse theories, there is one that requires no new physics, no extra dimensions, or branching timelines. It relies on just two simple assumptions: that space is infinite and that the matter within it is distributed randomly. If these two things are true, then the laws of simple probability lead to a conclusion that is both staggering and deeply personal. This is the level 1 multiverse. Think of it this way. In a finite space with a finite number of particles, there are a huge but finite number of ways those particles can be arranged. But if space is truly infinite, then every possible arrangement must repeat, not just once, but infinitely many times. 20. This means that somewhere out there in the unimaginably vast cosmic ocean, far beyond the reach of our most powerful telescopes, there is another region of space identical to our own. In that region, there is another galaxy that is a perfect twin of our Milky Way. Within that galaxy, there is a star system identical to ours, with a planet that is an exact copy of Earth. And on that Earth, there is a person who is an atom-for-atom duplicate of you, living out a life that is, up to this point, identical to yours. But the repetition doesn't stop there. There will also be regions that are almost identical, but with tiny variations. There is a version of you who chose a different breakfast this morning. There's a version who took a different career path. There's a version who married your high school sweetheart. Every choice you've ever made, every path you didn't take, is being lived out by a cosmic doppelganger in some distant corner of an infinite space. This challenges our most fundamental notions of identity and uniqueness. If there are infinite copies of you, what does it mean to be you? It suggests that your life, your choices, and your very existence are not unique events, but recurring patterns in an infinite cosmic quilt. It's a humbling and awe-inspiring thought that forces us to reconsider our place in the cosmos. Let's turn our attention inward now, to a state of consciousness we all experience every night, the enigmatic realm of dreams. The conventional scientific view sees dreams primarily as the brain's nightly housekeeping. The activation synthesis theory, for example, suggests dreams are simply the forebrain-S attempt to make sense of random neural signals fired from the brainstem during ME-slit. Other theories propose that dreaming is a way to consolidate memories, process emotions, and rehearse responses to potential threats. But what if dreams are sometimes more than just psychological processing? A more speculative and romantic viewpoint suggests that in the detached, relaxed state of sleep, our consciousness might be less tethered to this specific reality. Perhaps it occasionally tunes into the experiences of our alternate selves in other timelines. Think about those dreams that are unusually vivid, coherent, and emotionally resonant. The ones that feel less like a bizarre collage of your day and more like a genuine slice of a life. You might dream you are a skilled musician, even if you've never picked up an instrument. You might have a detailed and loving relationship with a family that doesn't exist in your waking life. You might wake up with a lingering feeling of nostalgia or sadness for a life you've never actually lived. According to this perspective, these might not be mere fantasies. They could be authentic glimpses into the lives of your parallel selves. Your consciousness, temporarily freed from the anchor of your physical senses, might be accessing the data stream of another you. It would explain why these dreams can feel so real, and why the emotions from them can sometimes bleed over into your waking day. It reframes dreaming, not just as a journey into the self, but as a potential journey into yourselves. So far, we've discussed shifting between realities as a passive, unconscious process. But what if it's possible to do it with intention? Here we venture into more metaphorical and speculative territory, with concepts like quantum jumping or reality shifting. This idea, which lacks scientific validation but holds a powerful place in many spiritual and self-help philosophies, frames practices like focused meditation, deep visualization, and the cultivation of specific emotional states as tools for consciously selecting a preferred reality. The premise is that the reality you want to experience, one where you are healthier, more successful, or in a loving relationship, already exists as a potential timeline in the multiverse. The process of quantum jumping is essentially the art of aligning your own energetic frequency with the frequency of that desired reality. Think of it like tuning a radio. The multiverse contains an infinite number of stations, each broadcasting a different reality. Your dominant thoughts, beliefs, and emotions act as your tuner. If your frequency is one of anxiety, lack, and doubt, you are tuned to realities that reflect that state. By consciously and consistently cultivating the feelings of joy, gratitude, and abundance as if your desire has already manifested, you are, in effect, changing the station. This isn't necessarily about the external world magically rearranging itself around you. It is more about shifting yourself into a version of you for whom that desired reality is the natural experience. 1. From this perspective, a sudden positive turn in your life, a chance encounter that leads to a dream job, an unexpected breakthrough in a relationship, might be understood as the moment your inner alignment finally clicked and you successfully jumped to a timeline that was a better match for your focused intention. It offers a powerful lens for understanding our own creative capacity to shape our life's trajectory from the inside out. For a long time, science held a view of consciousness as a mere spectator, a ghost in the machine that observes the world but doesn't really affect it. Another incredible example is avian navigation. It suggests that our awareness might be deeply and inextricably entangled with the quantum foundations of existence. Could the reconstructive nature of memory sometimes involve more than just our own neural pathways? Our journey so far has focused primarily on the individual consciousness. But what if consciousness doesn't exist in isolation? The discovery of mirror neurons is a perfect example. Large-scale global events, whether tragic or celebratory, can create powerful waves in this field, synchronizing the attention and emotions of millions. This interconnected ecology of awareness implies a profound responsibility. It suggests that we are not separate islands, but integral parts of a single living web of consciousness, and that the thoughts we think and the emotions we feel contribute to the reality that we all experience together. We often think of attention as a simple mental spotlight, a tool we use to focus on one thing while ignoring others. But what if attention is far more powerful than that? What if it's not just a spotlight, but a creative force that actively shapes and constructs the reality we experience from moment to moment? A part of our brain called the reticular activating system, RAS, acts as a filter, deciding what information gets through to our conscious mind. And what does it base this filtering on? Largely, it's based on what we've deemed important, what we are paying attention to. This is why when you decide you want to buy a specific model of car, you suddenly start seeing that car everywhere. It's a dizzying exploration that can leave us with more questions than answers. So, how do we integrate these profound ideas into our daily lives? Viewing your life through this lens is transformative. The goal isn't to prove that parallel universes exist or to perfectly control reality. That would be a finite game. So here's my advice. Start playing the infinite game. Keep a journal of synchronicities and meaningful coincidences. See them not as random accidents, but as winks from the universe. Treat your dreams as sacred spaces for exploration. Most importantly, cultivate a deep sense of wonder. Engage with the mystery of your own existence.